Hi Sassy Stampers! Thanks for joining me for this beautiful card that was designed for you by our club president, Diana Krug. We are going to do some emboss resist and then coloring on top of that emboss resist. So let's first look at what's in our kit. We have a butterfly die cut, which is in paper. You're going to have a thicker die cut. This is with kind of a fun foam, and you'll notice that the back of this fun foam is sticky. So once we remove all the pieces and we remove that backing, it will be sticky. This is what we are using to create our stamp. So we created a stamp out of a die cut. You'll have a piece of thicker plastic. Once we remove all the little holes from this, we're going to stick this to the plastic. These were created for you. They were die cut for you through a regular die cut machine using the Silly Winks sticky back sheet. We have a nice die cut piece for our sentiment. We have some gilding flakes, which we're going to have so much fun with later. We have our piece of paper that will be our card front base. Our card front, and this is our card base, but this is the piece that we'll be working with the most because this is what we're going to use to stamp, do our embossed resist, and then it will become our card front. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do is to remove all the little pieces from our butterfly. And if you have a poking tool, this is a Tim Holtz poking tool. It's a retractable poking tool. It can help you to really pick these pieces out of your butterfly, sort of get a hold of the edge of the piece and get it out. So once you start picking your pieces out, you can poke them out. But you want to go through and remove all of your pieces from the butterfly and throw them away. This will take just a few minutes. It can be quite therapeutic actually to poke these out and get rid of them. And you do want to scoot them off of your crafting area because they are sticky backed, and you would be amazed how they're going to stick to wherever you don't want them. So go ahead and get them in your trash can. Once you have all of your pieces poked out, look, I've got a piece stuck to me. I told you, it'll stick to you where you don't want it to. Now it's time to peel this paper, the release paper, from that sticky back. Okay, now I want to take my little plastic and I want to stick it. I'm going to tape my butterfly to that acrylic block using double-sided tape or adhesive or whatever I have handy. Okay, so I happen to have just a regular tape runner. This is Glue Dots brand tape runner, and I am going to put it on this plastic to adhere it to that. If you have double-sided Scotch tape, that will work. This is not permanent. We're not gluing this on here for good, but we want it to stick well enough that we can go ahead and make a background. So if it feels like it's going to fall off on you, go ahead and put something on strong enough to hold it, but not permanent. I want to use anti-static powder tool on this paper first. If I don't use an anti-static powder tool on here first, I'm going to be very disappointed with my results. Now there are lots of different kinds of anti-static powder tools. This is one version. This is by EK Success, and some people love this one and some people hate it. It smells like baby powder, and the way you use this one, you just put it all over your paper. What this does is it causes the Versamark to stick where it's supposed to stick and not all over the entire paper. And we're going to use Versamark. Now there are many different kinds of these marking pads. I prefer Versamark. You may have Ranger version. You may have lots of different versions, but my preference is Versamark. So we're going to use this butterfly as our stamp. And we want to stamp. Versamark is sticky. Did you notice? All over this paper in kind of a random pattern, so that we're creating our own background paper. Now, the nice thing about Versamark is that it'll stay pretty sticky for you. You can use clear embossing powder. I'm going to use Altenew Crisp Pure White. If you have clear, if that's all you have, please use clear. It will work just fine. There's one reason I like this Altenew. It's very crisp, it's very clean, and color wipes off of it very easily. I sprinkle all over and put it right back into. You can see where the powder is sticking. Oh, look, I didn't stamp very well. If you want to avoid butterflies slamming into each other like I did, stamp a few where you know they're very far apart. Then put your powder on top and come back and see where you want to stamp more. That's just not attractive, how my two butterflies are kind of bumping into one another. As you can see, here I have butterflies bumping into one another. Here I have butterflies bumping into one another. And that's not what I was hoping for. But we're going with it. If for no other reason than to show you guys that even when you think, oh my gosh, this is terrible, I've really messed it up, it doesn't look good, it's never gonna look right, it can still be beautiful. So even though I'm not happy with this, we're gonna go with this just so that you can see how this works, mess ups and all. The next thing we want to do is to heat this. And I am real good at burning my fingers, so I hold it with a paper clip. Let it heat up. I don't know how well you can see that the powder changes. As you're embossing, your powder goes from dull to glossy. So you know these glossy ones have been embossed, this dull one has not. But as we heat it, it begins to get glossy. It's like a magic trick. Something to keep in mind, you want to heat this until it's smooth and melted. Once it is smooth and melted, you are done. Walk away. If you continue to heat this, it is going to melt your embossing powder all the way into your paper until it's no longer smooth and melted and glossy. When you feel of embossing powder that was done correctly, it sticks up a little bit. You can feel it. It has a texture. It gives you walls. But it is not flat and it is not sticky unless you use sticky embossing powder. But regular white or clear, you should have a result something like this, except that your butterflies should not slam into each other. We have a little too much butterfly love, or I don't know if this is a butterfly throwdown going on here. But like I said, even though this is messed up and I'm not happy with it, we're going to use it because you will see even mess ups can create beautiful cards. We all know that my very, very favorite thing to have around whenever I am doing any kind of color inking at all is my water media mat by Waffle Flower. And I didn't clean this, or I did clean it and it didn't come clean. Let's just say that. Let's say I did clean it, but it didn't come clean. And we all know that that is probably not true. I'm going to be using Distress ink to do my inking. And this is the brand new color by Tim Holtz, Salvaged Patina. And it's my favorite color. I always tell my husband our entire house is done in these green, blue, aquamarine, turquoisey colors. So I say our house is aquamarine. This is Salvaged Patina by Tim Holtz. And however you want to put color on this card, do it. I'm going to do this with a blending brush and Salvaged Patina. I always start off of my paper and work my way in. And you can see how beautifully these butterflies just come to life. And we're going to go all the way around. Picking up more ink when we need to. Now we can do just this one color, or we can add in other colors. It just depends on your preference. Even for these times that we're going to come across some of these other butterflies here, it's still smart to start off of the paper as we want to go around these edges. Because if you don't, you will oftentimes get sort of a blob, even though this Distress ink and Distress Oxide ink is a little bit easier to blend with. You'll sometimes just get sort of a blob of color if you don't start off the edge of your paper. I'm going to sacrifice here and show you what sometimes happens. Do you see the blob of color? Now, in this instance, it's not terrible because it's right in the middle of that butterfly. And we probably do want it a little bit darker in these, you know, on the butterflies themselves. But if you start off the edge of the paper and work your way in, you don't get that dark, dark blob. Now, if you like that, that's great. But if you don't want that kind of darkness, now I sort of need to darken up the insides of the other butterflies so I don't feel badly about that one. Now, once you have inked to your heart's content, and like I said, you can stop here, you can add more color, you can do whatever makes you happy. Once you are happy, you want to really wipe off the excess ink that is on top of your embossing powder that you've melted. So your ink is not going to stick to this embossing powder. So once you wipe it off, you'll definitely get brighter. It brings it up, makes it look brighter, cleaner. Now, if you'd like, you can ink the edge of this cut piece that you're going to use on your card near the top. And see how, even though my butterflies have run into each other, where, for example, Diana's did not, she was much better at spacing her butterflies. Even though mine run into each other, it's not terrible. It doesn't make me unhappy. It doesn't upset me. It looks okay. So before I stamp this and put it on, I personally just want to add a little bit more color to this. So I'm just taking my little distress inks and seeing that I think peacock feathers will look nice with this. I actually think that maybe some mermaid lagoon would look good with this, and maybe even a tiny bit of purple. So before I mess up this card base, I might want to try a couple of colors together and see how they look. So there's my salvaged patina, which is the newest color. I want to use a different peacock feathers, which looks very similar, but is a little bit different. A little bit of mermaid lagoon. Once again, I want to use a different so let's just put these in order so that I know what brush is what. I'm losing control here. Be a little bit more organized about how I'm doing things. And then I want to add in maybe a little bit of purple. So once again, I want to use a different blending brush. And I'm going to come off the edge of this paper. Now see, I think that's way too gray. That one looks a bit too gray to me. So I want a little bit more of a brilliant purple. So we're going to go with Seedless Preserves. Let's see how Seedless Preserves looks. Oh, it's too bright. Too bright. I don't want Seedless Preserves on there. Let's try Wilted Violet. I'm going to clean this brush off by using my microfiber towel. And let's try Distressed Violet down here. Once again, starting off the edge of my paper. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. See those colors together? I like those colors together. So I'm going to add a little tiny bit of these other colors. And the Distressed Violet, I want the least amount of. So I really want to kind of smush it off the edge here and just bring a little bit in here. And maybe a little bit in here. I don't want to do too much of it. Oh, now I didn't set my brushes where I know which one is which, so I'm going to clean it out pretty well before I put it in my Mermaid Lagoon. And bring some Mermaid Lagoon in here. Because it is a different color. Some in from the bottom, just to add interest to my card base here. And I love the Emboss Resist because my butterflies just get more and more brilliant. And a little bit more Mermaid Lagoon right in here. And my peacock feathers, making sure that I clean this off again. Let's bring this in right here. I have a tiny bit of peacock feathers right here. I think peacock feathers is probably a really close match to the salvaged patina, but it's much greener when you look at it next to it. So see, I like those colors together right there. These were just kind of in the wrong color family, in my opinion. Okay, now, because we are going to do our gilding on here, I know we learned this before when we did the card that Teresa Rosbrum taught us, but I think with the gilding flakes that we're going to use on our main butterfly, I think it's a good idea maybe to add just a tiny bit of flecks of gold down in here as well. And since we're going to do a different way on the butterfly, we're going to use these gilding flakes, I would like to just sprinkle a little bit of actual gold onto our background. So I've mixed a little bit of gold paint and a little bit of water. I'm using this inexpensive toothbrush that we all got one of, tapping it off, and then I'm flecking the gold onto my background. So the next thing we want to do is we want to color this butterfly that is going to be our focal point. And I want this in our main color, which is our salvaged patina. Once again, still starting off the edge, even though I'm coloring all the way around the edge of this little guy. Just bringing color to his edges. You could make his center a different color if you like. You can bring in a little bit of another color. Keep in mind that we will be using gilding flakes on this as well, but you still want a nice base color. Now we're going to use gilding flakes on our butterfly. And to do this, you're going to want a glue that even after it's dry, stays sticky. And green Tombow mono liquid glue stays sticky. So I'm going to put a bit of this on my finger, just a bit. You can use a paintbrush, you can use a Q-tip, and I'm going to sort of visualize where I think I would like these gilding flakes to stay. So let's look at, Diana did hers kind of down the center, a little on the edges, just sort of here and there. Now my butterfly die cut is just a little bit different than hers, but I like that look. I like how it is very golden through the middle, and the tips of the antennae are very golden and around the edges. So that's what I'm going to do with my glue. The best thing I can tell you about this is you want this glue to be a thin, thin layer. You do not want globs of glue. See how I put a little bit of a glob on one finger, but I'm using the other finger to choose where the glue goes. And if it's globby, I am sort of spreading it out so that it's thin. I know I want some on the antennae and sort of around the edges, and maybe a little just in spots. Now, so that I don't gild myself, I'm going to clean off my hands. Now, if you have a fan on in your crafting room, turn it off. One, so it doesn't stick to my fingers. Two, so it doesn't fly away. They will fly away. They're very delicate. And I'm using a little at a time, and I'm just touching them to the sticky parts of this butterfly. Gilding flakes are so pretty, and just a little tiny bit goes a very long way with a gilding flake. As you can see. Where they've stuck to my fingers, I can touch the sticky parts of my glue and it'll take it right off of my fingers and they'll stick to that sticky part. Let's get a bigger one. And when you touch it to the sticky parts of the glue, it will stick. And you can take it and move it around. The parts that aren't stuck down, you can stick them down as well. Keeping in mind where your glue is on your butterfly, because you know that's where these gilding flakes are going to stick. So move them around. You can move them with your finger. Kind of burnish them in place with your finger. This part that is not stuck to anything, you can pull it off with your tweezers and move it to the parts that are sticky. See how there's all this extra here? When I burnish it off with my fingers, I can pick up the gilding flakes and move them off. Rubbing them in. And all these little gilding flakes I can pick up with the gluey parts. And where there's not glue, it will not stick. You can play with these gilding flakes for as long as you feel like it. Really getting them where you want them, getting the little pretty golden color wherever you want it. And when you're ready to clean up, because these flakes do tend to stick and fly away. And if you don't want it on your next project, definitely you can use a microfiber cloth, or if you have a Swiffer cloth, like a Swiffer duster, a Swiffer will pick this up really well as well. But your microfiber cloth will also help you pick up your gilding flakes. And it is time to put your card front on your card base after you stamp and add this onto.